Air pollution is a complex problem. Neither the rich nor the poor are spared by it. The most difficult job or entrepreneurship in India is that of a farmer. Both in summer and winter, we are seeing very bad air quality. Stubble burning, in my opinion, should not be an issue.
Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to Quantum Shift, a podcast where leadership meets spirit. I'm your host, Saloni Singh. I'm a life coach for conscious leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who are ready to lead from their higher self and consciousness. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that I feel every single Indian is affected by, and we feel sad about as well. Usually, we don't do much about it. Whether you are a common man, a bureaucrat, a politician, or a celebrity, if you're an Indian, I'm sure you have been affected by it. I'm talking about air pollution. And as this is a leadership podcast, but we have spoken about that leadership is not just about power and title and positions or leading huge teams and organizations. Rather, leadership is also about how you are leading your life, whether you're leading your own life with courage or whether you're creating a big shift and transformation in the society. Both are conscious leadership that we are talking about. So, coming back to the air pollution, do you know that because of PM 2.5 pollution, an average Indian life is reduced by almost 5 years? And if you live in North India, that number goes to almost 12 years. Isn't that staggering and mind boggling? So, today I will be talking to a leader who is actually working at grassroots level with farmers, with government, and with organizations with the mission to scientifically and practically deal with the problem of air pollution. Let me introduce my guest today, Roshan Shankar, who is the founder of Saroja Earth, a man on a mission to combat air pollution in India, working specially in Punjab and Haryana to solve the issue of rice stubble burning. We also call it parali burning, with farmers, with government, and policymakers. At Saroja Earth, they are building solutions that turn pollution into prosperity with an open theory of change. When I spoke to Roshan about his vision and his mission, what I loved, something he shared, that he is not someone who liked to tell people about his vision and mission. Rather, he liked to show them that it is possible and also how to make it possible. So, welcome, Roshan, to the show, Quantum Shift. And I'm really looking forward to create more awareness about the issue of air pollution and especially what you are doing about it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Saloni. And thanks to Neeraj Khurana from our Stanford alumni group who made this conversation possible. I'm usually a little bit reticent about coming out in public, but a kind person like him and a gracious host like you have sort of brought me out. So very grateful and happy to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you to my friend Riyaj who introduced you to me. And I was actually quite intrigued because somebody who's living in Delhi NCR, I feel the pain and ache of it, but really I don't know how I can contribute. And I feel very inspired by the work you're doing, Roshan. So let's begin with the first thing, the elephant in the room, air pollution. It feels like a very complicated, complex issue. For a lay person like me, can you simplify it, whoever is listening to us, Roshan? Like, how do we understand what's happening here?
There are certain goods called private goods that we might have read in economics class in school. So when we buy a certain clothing apparel for ourselves, that's a private good. We pay for it ourselves. But there are certain public goods as well, like energy, like air, like water, that is for everyone. And public goods are treated quite differently. Now, heading back to certain concepts that we might have heard in fifth class, we have three kinds of phases of any matter. We have solid, liquid, and gas. Solids are easier to manage. Liquids are a little bit harder to manage. And gases are the hardest, right? You can't see them. Sometimes you can only smell them and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of pollution of those elements as well. If we trace them back to the original elements of Agni, Vayu, Prithvi, Earth, or if we liked Captain Planet a lot, Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and Heart. So I think all the elements in some ways are polluted in these days, and they are both a personal, private good, but they're also a public good.
Right.
In that space, I think in the many ways in which we solve public problems, whether that is through the government, whether that's through the private sector, whether that's through civil society activism, whether that's through research, whether that's through media. Air pollution is a complex problem which requires a whole host of stakeholders to work together to make it better for ourselves. And it's also important to understand that it's a complex issue and it's a complicated issue, right? And those are slightly different things. Complex issues are where you can completely model the problem very accurately and you can try to get to a solution. I think that's happening increasingly with the energy sector and the water sector, where you have renewable energy coming across the world, whether it's nuclear energy or solar energy or wind energy. It's the economics of it and government policies around it that have to work out. I think very similarly for the liquid state, you have a lot of, like we are near Kapaseda in Delhi and you come from Gurgaon, where a lot of private sewage treatment plants are also there. Sometimes untreated sewage water is also there. And again, the government is also involved, maybe through the Delhi Jal Board, to solve that water or sewerage issue. Air, on the other hand, is a much more complicated issue because everything from the Indo-Gangetic plains to the westerlies, to the Himalayas, to Pakistan's emissions, all sort of impact in a very ripple domino effect in some or the other way. And while we're talking about very, very big macro issues that affect air pollution in these Gangetic plains, which are sort of, you can't change the Himalayas and you can't change the westerlies winds, you also have several other factors that lead down to your local level, to the fact that whether a resident welfare association is conscientious enough to give their guards or their maids sweaters, blankets, and something to keep them warm in the winter, or will they just keep them out in the open and they will burn garbage or leaves nearby? So there's a source of emission that happens at multiple scales. So I always say the first source of pollution is first within the heart. It's in the mind, right? You are not kind to people. You don't remember second-class moral science. I think that will also cause pollution in some ways, and it will manifest itself in air pollution. But at the same time, there are things that happen at different scales, which we may be complicit in as well as the government. So I think the best way I was actually explaining it to a good friend of mine is like, this reminds me of the Indian cricket team of the 90s, the problem of air pollution. So think of 11 players, and the 11 players who are trying to solve this problem or beat this monster is at the Indian cricket team, where the captain is, let's say, the government, and the Democrat, it could be your chief minister or your prime minister. And you have various other players like the bureaucrat, the technocrat, the investor, the entrepreneur, the banker, the funder, the philanthropist, social media person, the podcast host, the grassroots activist, and so on. And all of them necessarily don't even have a good idea about the problem. They have some version of the problem, like the 7 sages looking at the elephant and touching different parts of the body and trying to see whether it's a snake or it's a rock, but it's an elephant. As you started with the elephant in the room as the problem. When you touch different parts of the elephant, you may not necessarily know that it's the elephant. So I think there's 11 different players who are quite uncoordinated. Sometimes they fight a lot with each other. Sometimes they don't necessarily align. And as a result of both our sins of commission and omission, and there are both, sometimes we have been unmindfully adding to the problem. Sometimes we have very intentionally added to the problem for our own greed. So for different reasons and different scales, different sources of emissions, whether they are vehicular emissions, industrial emissions, construction emissions, or whether they are the Diwali crackers or the stubble burning, all sort of come together. And they unfortunately create a much more amplified, bigger effect because aerial chemistry or inorganic chemistry or organic chemistry works in that way is that 1 और 1 11 हो जाता है. So 1 plus 1 sometimes doesn't equal 2, it becomes 11. So I think that's one way in which I'd explain the air pollution problem, that it's a public good issue where neither the rich nor the poor are spared by it, but everyone's actions have contributed to it. So it's a problem that requires collaboration, it requires kindness, it requires some degree of conscientiousness, and it requires a host of stakeholders to keep their egos behind and come together to try to do what they can. And most importantly, it's a problem where we can't point the finger at the others without doing all that we can ourselves consistently. So a lot of people say, how will my actions or not me taking the metro make things better? You not taking the metro will definitely make things worse. So I think if every individual, every institution, every sort of ideologue or people who implement ideas, four eyes, if all of them do their work, I think this is a problem that we can definitely reduce the air pollution that North India, the Indo-Gangetic plains from Punjab to Bihar have by about 80% in the next 5 years. But that requires a great deal of collaboration between people.
I fully relate with what you just said, Roshan, that I think most of us, including myself, we always feel like, really, will it make a difference if I take the metro? But what you are saying is that even one individual, if who is thinking this way, does make a difference. At least they are making it worse by not using it and using a car.
Yeah,
That's
at
what.
least you feel better. I mean, I came to your podcast through the metro. I didn't take my family car to come out here. My shoes look a little bit worse, but no one's looking at my shoes on
Yeah.
this podcast. So I think I'll be forgiven for that. But I feel good at the end of the day that I took some
And
form of public transport.
what I
And
want to know, that does it really make a difference? Because this is what even we hear. Actually, does it really make a difference? An individual making a different choice.
I think you'll have to, that's a personal standpoint and it's a spiritual question that you'll have to answer, right? If you look at any Tirthankar Jain monk who's walking across the country and saying good things, does their work
Make a
ever
difference.
matter? Does
Yeah.
their individual choice matter? Uh, if it makes personal meaning to you, it does
Then it
matter.
does matter.
So I think now there's a lot of different scales, I definitely agree, that are much more important than the other. If you looked at the air pollution problem in North India and you had to say what's the one most important thing that someone could do, it is definitely looking at the thermal power plants across the region and how they manage their boiler emissions.
Okay.
I think while I am working on stubble burning, I am doing that more to work with farmers on their issues in the rural area, whether that's increasing their income, improving their lives, or managing their waste. But I'm not doing it because that's the primary source of emission. I think stubble burning is actually one of the lower sources of emission,
Okay.
which only comes up periodically during the year. There
In the
are
winter.
there are
Yeah.
perennial sources of pollution, then there are episodic sources of pollution. So perennial
Okay.
sources of pollution are things that we do all year, that through human
Through.
or individual or institutional action, you're doing construction always, you're always traveling, there are buses, cars always plying on the road. There's always some kind of industry moving, happening throughout the year. And then there are episodic sources like Diwali
Diwali.
crackers for a few days, maybe stubble burning for a few months, a net of a month in 2 seasons of the Rabi and Kharif season. But if you had to look at one thing that you could do the best, it would be for all the thermal power plants of North India to reduce their coal usage. It is to use more biomass-based fuel, and that could be of any kind. It could be LNG, it could be pellets, it could be fuel, and it would be to ensure that they operate all their environmental equipment, their electrostatic precipitators, anything that reduces air pollution as per the Air, Water and Environmental Protection Act, already enshrined that they have to do, right? This is not a new suggestion. Just implement the Environmental Protection Act and the
So the
rules that
policy
you're,
is already there.
the
That's what you're
policy is
saying.
there, the rules
Okay.
are there, the laws are there, the engineering is there, the technology is there, the business economics is there. And these are all factories or businesses which make thousands of crores profit after taxes. So it's not even that we are asking a small businessman to make this correction, maybe go from 40% profit margin to 20% profit margin. We're not talking about very small operators. We're talking about large corporates, large public sector corporations,
Right.
which maybe cause 20% of this overall air pollution problem in the entire region just by being unmindful and not sort of implementing the
Implementing.
rules that are already there. So that would be the biggest. So I think
So, may
working,
I
yeah.
ask you this, Roshan? What are you doing at Saroja? Are you making some changes there to make people aware, or these industries? How
So
what are you
as
doing?
of now, what we are doing is we have been both working with the Central Electricity Authority
Okay.
as an open source lobbyist. Call myself an open source lobbyist because I do try to influence government policy,
Okay.
but I try to do that in an open source manner. I don't have a vested personal interest in it. And I am also trying to do it in the most ethical or practical manner in which they'd be able to adopt it as well.
Okay.
So whether that is looking at boiler design, whether that's trying to connect the dots between various practitioners of greener coal and cleaner coal with the right technocrats, right? So we are trying to do some open source lobbying, trying to do some consulting. I've given lectures at different both IITs as well as government institutions where we've
Okay.
tried to bring best practices and knowledge. Sometimes people want to do the right thing, but they may not have the knowledge to do the
Knowledge,
right thing,
yes.
right? So we should also not be cynical
Hmm.
about or have a very doomsday approach ki sab
Yeah.
kharabi hone wala hai, that everything is going to go awry. I think if you're positive and we try to do the best we can, I think there are several dots that we can connect.
Okay.
So a few of them I'll list are funding young academics at the top premier institutions, whether it is the IITs, whether it's the Center for Science and Industrial Research, the same centralization that you see in society, right? We remember the chairpersons, the CEOs, the prime
Right.
ministers, the chief ministers. That also happens in academic institutions. People remember the heads of departments, the famous professors, but frequently young professors or very dynamic individuals who may not have the greatest managerial skills to raise money have some of the best ideas. So we try to take them into production, try to get them philanthropic money. We try to connect them to government so that they can
Okay.
work on some public problems with an impact. The second is a lot of people want to work with the government, and frequently they work at national policy or state policy levels. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of good non-profits doing some work there, but no one ever wants to work with the district magistrate, or no one wants to go to the panchayat, right? The
Yeah.
Amazon Prime show Panchayat shows us that
Yeah.
very few people actually want to go to a panchayat, want to go to a tehsil. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes for some favors they want to work with a district magistrate. So what we've said is there are enough people doing work with the national governments or the state governments. We exclusively work with district magistrates and panchayats.
Okay.
So whatever they need, and sometimes the help is very small. They just want to understand how an Excel sheet works, right? And no
Okay.
one's there to handhold them to show how an Excel sheet can help them manage their collection of some biomass better. Or sometimes they don't have
Okay.
the data skills to operate certain kinds of sensors. So for them to even visualize what air quality looks like in their tehsil, so we are working at that scale.
That's good.
And finally, I actually am very hopeful with school students. So at our company, we have either high quality researchers and doers, or we have school students. So I
Okay.
have sort of left
So,
everyone in between
what
because
do you
I
do
think
with school
so. They
students?
are interns of ours. We get them to
Okay.
write a lot of articles. We let them to research a lot of articles. We get them to distribute it in their schools, because I think if the revolution starts in schools, they will trouble all their parents. So I'm sure if your children came home and
Yeah.
got you troubled about a problem,
Yes.
you would also get triggered to do something about it. So I think I'm a little bit devious in that way.
So raising awareness at a young
Yeah, so
level.
I want to have a lot of revolutionaries in school who
Okay.
are really interested in this problem. So those are some ways in which we are trying to get different kinds of problem solvers. So I think
Okay.
one focus that a lot of people has is, do you have the right answer to a question, right? I actually think it's important to have more problem solvers than it is to have the right solution. If you have more and more problem solvers, people will figure out a way to solve it for their own area, for in their own way. We'd probably have more activists. So I think more activists, more academics is the right answer than finding the right
All
answer
right.
from one person. So
And there
these are
might be many different
and there might be different
solutions.
aspects, there might be very different solutions. Like in my travels from and I've picked Punjab and Haryana because they're slightly harder regions. I myself ancestrally am Tamilian, half Malayali. I've
Okay.
been born and raised in Delhi, but I think it's a very difficult region because the region has traditionally not gotten a lot of support from different governments, whether it's the state or the national government. Industrial capacity is low here because people have tended to move manufacturing a lot to West India, like Gujarat and Maharashtra, or to
Okay.
South, like in Tamil Nadu. So there is not much know-how in the market space as well. And again, with universities, like except for a few universities, there hasn't been great amount of private universities coming up, and the quality of public universities has taken a hit over the last
Right.
20, 30 years because of a host of political, policy, social reasons.
So how are you working with farmers in Punjab and Haryana, especially for the stubble burning?
So I live in Punjab now. So
Okay.
this is one of my trips to Delhi. I've been now there for about 3.5, 4 years, and I travel up and down between different states. I've now settled in Khanna near Ludhiana. It's in Ludhiana district, and I live close to a village. I work with farmers. I try to do some farming, understand their lives. And I also have a dear friend who is in Kethal in Haryana. I also do some farming with him, so to get a flavor of both the states in different
Okay.
places and different societies. And I think being a part of their lives, you end up understanding what I think.
That's
I
right.
can definitely say that the most difficult job or entrepreneurship in India is that of a farmer. You are not de-risked by the banks. You are barely given a minimum support price by the government. You have risks of climate, of pests, of rains. You have the weight of the expectations of the country to feed you, and yet you are the lowest paid people. And a lot of different people, from the arthias to the middlemen to the chemicals and fertilizers companies outside, a lot of those pressures all exist on you.
Right.
I can definitely say this with my academic and professional background, that most of my business friends or academic friends will find it very hard to grow a crop and very hard to make money as a farmer. So we should be very consider ourselves very privileged that we get to stay in cities, that we have very good networks that allow us to make money of our brain and our voice and our knowledge. So I think first I just do some farming there. The second is we've also set up a parali lab. Parali is the Hindi or Punjabi word for straw, rice stubble. So rice has four components: the grain itself, which we eat as basmati rice or your hybrid
Yeah.
rice. You have the rice bran, you have the rice husk, and you have the rice straw or the stubble. So the bran and husk are still used for oil and certain kinds of energy purposes, but straw gets
Straw.
remained on the ground when the baler cuts it, and they don't collect it and dispose it anywhere, because unlike the wheat crop, and that's why you see a little bit lesser pollution from stubble burning in the summer. Wheat crop can be used for certain other industries, but
Okay.
rice straw is one of the hardest biomass waste. It has silica in it, especially because of the green revolution rice that came in. Those rice varieties have a lot of silica in them, which is what makes them hard to burn in industrial boilers, which is what makes them very less palatable to the cows in the region. And there's also not a history in this region of growing rice and wheat. This has always been a millet-based ragi bajra region,
Okay.
right? You don't think
We
of,
we
except
feel
for
it's, yeah.
rajma chawal, which is probably again a modern invention. Very little rice has been both grown and consumed in this region before the last 60, 70 years. So
Okay.
Punjab was actually the test ground along with Philippines and Mexico for a lot of new varieties of crops to be tested in the mid 60s and 70s. And a lot of prosperity came from those varieties because they guaranteed a higher yield. They used very modern
Okay.
techniques. But the 50-year turnaround time or the feedback of all the work that was done there now shows that it has corroded the soil a lot. So the short run gains have outweighed the long run costs. Some policies should have been amended, but we didn't. Just like with any policy, it stays too long in society, it becomes a habit. And there have been various other social forces, political forces, economic forces, religious forces, which have also sort of combined very weirdly in this region. So I thought that this is a good region, that if you're successful here, we'll obviously be successful elsewhere, because the
Right.
costs of doing business or costs of living a sort of regular life is much harder here. I also thought it would be a good experience to learn a new Indian language. And so I basically buy the farm waste from the farmers.
Okay.
So the first is monetary incentive. I think any intervention in the village that doesn't de-risk the farmer and doesn't increase their income is putting too much burden on them, right? So first you buy their problem off them, right, which they are actually paying for right now. So that creates a clear win-win. And then we create different products, fuels, and chemicals from that. And we're also keeping our lab open source. Actually, from October or so, we'll actually open it up to the public once we have
Okay.
most of our different products and fuels open. And we'd like to get people to come and copy our work.
So what kind of products are you making from
So
Parali?
right now we're making pellets, we're making biogas, we'll soon be making biochar. We've got about 6 or 7 different other products and fuels for which we have very clear pathways, which just require investors. And we're also growing some new varieties of rice and wheat. So instead of telling people grow better varieties of rice and wheat that take lesser water or are faster
Okay.
varieties, we're doing that ourselves. So I think once some of these things we can show our work as opposed to preach our work. So I really like our second class moral science from school, right? Practice what you preach,
Practice what you
right? So
preach.
that's a
Yeah.
good thing to be. Be kind and conscientious, be honest.
Absolutely.
So we'll try to be all of the things that our second class moral science taught us to be, and just open it up to different people and say that if we can make money, right, from a problem, despite being quote unquote outsiders, why can't you all make money, right?
Right.
And I think you can find good scale, and I think our business model is that. And I'm not doing this and sometimes say, "Arey, this is some sacrifice or some good thing." I think I'm being very conscientious and also very strategic.
Right.
So I
Right.
think if good has to scale, good also has to be strategic. It also has to have a very positive impact. So I'm saying I'm
Right.
happy to make money, right? I'm
Right.
interested in making
Yeah.
money, and by spreading the knowledge to
Create.
more people, the ecosystem will grow. And if I make 1% of that pie, I'm much happier than
That's a
running a
win-win.
closed factory where I just make some money for myself. So
Yeah.
I think there's public and private good definitely can be aligned. And I hope that in the next 6 to 8 months, I'm able to prove that theory out as well.
Wonderful. So I'm curious, you are a Stanford and Princeton alumni, Roshan. What actually inspired you to work? Because I'm sure it must be quite hard. We'll go to the challenges working with farmers, and your background is not into farming, right? So what inspired you? What made you feel that you want to work with this particular challenge of air pollution? How did you come to it? That's what I want to know.
So I'm not a Princeton alumni yet. I
Okay.
had started my PhD, but I had to drop out temporarily. I
Okay.
hope to get back to academia at some point. I did go to Stanford for a few degrees, and I was at NSIT before this. I think the long and short answer of it is I had a very trauma-free childhood where my parents just allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I've not been really restricted in my life in any way. I've been forced to I've been forced to do nothing, exposed to almost everything, and just be asked to believe in something. So I think this is something that a very good friend of mine, Abhinav, says. So this is a good way to raise children:
Right.
expose them to everything, force them to do nothing, but ask them to believe in something. And I think as a sort of, again, our family moved to Delhi in the 1920s from the south. Most of my grandparents, parents, everyone has either been living in a major city in North India or in the US. So academia or doing things with your brain comes very naturally to me. So it's actually not very big that I went to any good institution to study. Most of my family has a lot of
Okay.
pedigree and many Padma awards and many
Okay.
professorships in the family. So I'm sort of the least educated amongst them.
Okay.
But they did sort of give me the freedom to choose what I wanted
What
to
do you
do.
want?
There was I think one quote that stays with me is that education is a badge of public service, not a passport to privilege. Right. So a lot of,
That's
and it also
interesting.
depends on your family sort of background. So there's a lot of my friends, and this is to each their own, right? So I have friends who've lost parents who are taking care of their family. A job or a path, or doing something abroad is very important. People are escaping things. I've had a very peaceful, happy childhood. I've had great friends. I've never been bullied. I've mostly
Right.
done well in class. I was liked by the teachers. So I think the Dalai Lama, I met him once when I was, I think, 18 or 19. And he said that children who don't have trauma also have to do more in society because a lot of others are still dealing with their own
Dealing with their
problems.
problems.
Right? There's a lot of healing
Yes.
that they have to do inside before
Inside.
they do anything outside. So that allowed me the freedom. My parents are upper middle class now. They used to be lower middle class or lower class before, but they found their way by working very hard to into a peaceful life. So I don't have to take care of them. I'm a single child, so it's probably very obvious that I'm a single child. So I've been given a lot of love. My company is named after my grandmother. Saroja is her
Okay.
name, Saroja Krishnamurthy. And I think she embodied a lot of the great qualities that I think I wish to see in society, in sustainability, in resilience, right? A person can also be sustainable and
Yes.
resilient. So I think she was very much that. So I think in that journey, I've done a lot of degrees. I've gone and back and forth a lot of places. I think at scale, the sort of real move happened for me at Stanford, where two of my advisors were Professor William Perry, who was a math PhD who went into government and did a lot of work on the stealth program
Okay.
of F-22 Raptors, a lot of the denuclearization work. He was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Defense, and Joe Nation, who was a fantastic professor to me, and also a person who was both a Pan American Airways flight steward, who became a professor, who became a California assemblyman, and then wrote some of the best pension reform in the US. So I think they inspired me to help to think that someone young could also do something in the public space. A lot of times we think that young people
Yeah.
should do startups, or they should stick to a job, or they should
Yes.
stick to something very not grandiose in the social vision. So I think
Conventional.
I think
Yeah,
they sort
business.
of helped me see that. I think India Against Corruption, Aam Aadmi Party, a lot of new energy with Modi and Kejriwal also came to the fore when I was graduating from Stanford. So I came back. I tried to work on several public problems, and I found some success in that. And that basically exposed me to, I think, different problems in the city. So I was really trying to understand cities well. And I think this one problem where I wasn't able to do much, because I think a problem is way more complex than just the government doing something in
Yeah.
it, was air quality. So I always tell people that the two problems I'd like to do the most on are the seen unseen problems, right? We see them every day, but we don't really know what to
Realize
do
it.
about it. So one of them is children begging on the streets, and the other is air quality. So I think these two are things where I really don't have a good grip on how do you get to different parts of the mafia or the ecosystem that gets them there. And on most other things, again, I think you can have fairly good plans. The government or civil society just lacks the teams or the right set of people to do better on healthcare, on education, right? You're a doctor. There are enough good, conscientious doctors that if the government reached out to you and say, can you do something for the poor, and coordinated it and managed it well, I don't think we'd have that much of a problem,
Right.
at least in Delhi NCR, on that. And there's telemedicine, so you could do it elsewhere as well. So it's a management issue, it's a coordination issue, it's a governmental issue. But I think as I zoned in and I sort of transitioned out of several roles in the public sphere or in politics or in government, I sort of realized that in this region, especially, there's a need for, and this problem particularly, and I hope to get to children begging on the streets as well someday. I think this problem particularly requires a greater understanding first of the problem itself, right? So it requires some of the best minds of the world and India to think about it much more. And most of our academics are also very stuck into various silos. So I thought that's a great place where I can continue to learn new things, which I enjoy doing. So
Right.
it's a very personal mission as well. It's not just that it's for the public good that I'm doing it. I think air quality, or solving for air quality rather, is a problem where there's a lot of space for knowledge creation. There's a lot of space for knowledge dissemination. And there's a lot of space for knowledge implementation. I think these are three things that
Yes.
Friedrich Hayek wrote about in the use of knowledge in society, right? What's the use of knowledge, right? You can create some things, but if it's
Yeah.
abstractly only in the air,
Yeah.
it's not very useful.
Not useful.
You disseminate as a consultant or as a podcast host, or as just a consultant to various organizations, or as an advisor. And then there's implementing it as well. And I thought that especially on the problem of air quality, this is one problem where I don't think Arvind Kejriwal, Bhagwant Mann, Narendra Modi, Yogi Adityanath, Nayab Singh Saini are all opposed to each other, right? Everyone wants to wake
Wants
up
to
and
get
have some
better.
clean air.
Yeah.
They probably hate each other's guts. They probably hate each other's politics, like Rahul Gandhi. All of them probably don't like each other. There's a lot of, I hope that converts as well, that people can be opponents and not enemies. But on this one particular issue, I have heard no party saying any different things.
Yeah.
All government bureaucrats, everyone wants to do something good, right? It's in their better interest to have better clean
Everybody
air,
wants clean
right?
air.
And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, even if you don't face the problem of that the poor people do, which I think you should also be kind about, but most rich people or powerful people don't have water problems or energy problems.
Yeah.
But this is a problem that affects their children as well. So I have been able to get some work done through the courts just because High Court justices or Supreme Court justices, kids or their grandchildren fell ill, right? And then they took cognizance. So this is one problem which actually is truly affecting everyone. The rich and powerful cannot segment their way away from this problem as well. Stubble burning, in my opinion, should not be an issue. I think we should stop focusing in the winter about the stubble burning. So hopefully by helping solve the issue for the farmers, we'll kill that bogeyman, because that causes pollution for a very brief period of time, and it's the one source of pollution that doesn't have a lobby, right? So why I went into air pollution had that reason, but why did I choose stubble burning, right? Why did I not work on vehicles or industries or so on? Because there's money to be made there as well, and paying customers there as well. The farmers don't have a lobby, right? Who speak in a manner that is not in a very, let's say, organizing or communist manner. At times, the Kisan unions are the only representative. I think we should deeply respect every Kisan union that comes to Delhi and tells their problems in a very mindful manner. They are showing that they have a problem and we are not solving it. And they don't have a representative, right? The automotive car manufacturers have the society, have CII, have FICCI, have ASOCHAM, right? You have various different people lobbying for the builders will lobby for how to reduce construction costs. They will bribe their way into reducing the cost of construction by not implementing norms. The industries will speak to the Ministry of Power and all of their functionaries, or the Environment Ministry, right? Who does the farmer go to, and who is able to speak to them or speak to their problems? So I think stubble burning is a problem that is eminently solvable. I think if I think in 10 years we can reduce 80% of air pollution in North India, I think you can end stubble burning in 3 years.
Wonderful.
Enough money has been put in by the government. Enough bureaucrats want to make it happen. It's a priority for all the district magistrates in this region. So actually now the only parts of society that have to do better are the market, or the entrepreneurs, or the sort of investors, or the philanthropists, right? This is actually one problem where, and in most problems we say private sector is doing better, or there are so many do-gooders, right? In education, in health, and so on. This is actually a problem where the government and bureaucrats and technocrats have done more than the private sector or philanthropists. So I thought it was also a good time for me to learn how to build a company. I've basically been volunteering my life. I've been studying, and I thought building a company would also help me learn about myself and do more. So those are some of the reasons why I'm building an air pollution company.
Wonderful, Roshan. As you mentioned that every single human being is being impacted by it. And we see that, of course, little children, elderly, any age group, wheezing, coughing, and that's become, of course, increases in winter time as well. So on that note, would you share a few things that you think on an individual level, a common person can make a shift to contribute, to stop, decreasing at least some
Absolutely,
air pollution.
And it's very important because we should never think that the power is not in our hands. We always have the ability to transform change. I think the first thing and we can talk about other scales as well, but the way I've structured how to solve for air pollution rather than just measure it or talk about it is at the individual scale, it's at the family scale, it's at the building scale. Then is the community or the neighborhood scale. Then it's the district scale, the city scale, state scale, nation scale, right? So there are different scales at which this problem can be addressed, and there are different solutions for it. I think the first thing to do is immediately have some kinds of abatement, right? And this is something the richer people definitely do, is they have better cars, they have air purifiers in their homes, and they have masks when they move out. They check Google Maps when there is a lot of air pollution. They check their Apple weather to see when there is air pollution or not. And they make a mindful decision to go out or not. So I think this you can do from today itself. I think educating yourself is also a very important thing. Doing this for different rungs of social strata and society is also doable, right? So if there's a Dyson or a Bosch or a top level air purifier that can be made at 50,000 rupees or 60,000 rupees, that's affordable to a very small chunk of society, right? I actually don't have one of those because I didn't think that given the salary I give myself, I could afford that. So I got something at, let's say, the 10,000 rupee price point, right? What will you do about all the people who cannot afford this much, right? For 80% of the city in Delhi, people live below, let's say, 15,000 rupees a month or 20,000 rupees a month. For them, sure, if you show them that it's actually going to improve their lives, it's going to reduce the number of sick days, even they might buy it. But these expensive air purifiers are not a great ideal. There's something called the Corsi Rosenthal box. A lot of people should know about this. This is a do-it-yourself air purifier that you can make. If there are a lot of do-it-yourself and it requires some HVAC, some fans, and you can make your own air purifier
Okay.
for about 2,500 rupees, in my opinion, if you buy the materials at scale. I think that's something that every room, every jhuggi, every slum, every unauthorized colony, everyone can do just to make their general living experience better, right? So just like almost every house now has at least a fan, right? And let's say about 50% houses do have some form of air conditioning or ventilation or something. And even at the poorer strata, I think an air purifier is definitely something that's doable. So more companies should make cheaper air purifiers. If not, philanthropists should fund making air purifiers, because all the gyan is about how the system will get solved is different. But
Yeah.
first is, can you purify the air that's around
At
you right
least.
now?
Yeah.
I think the second is just like in COVID, masks became mainstream. I think above a certain amount of air pollution in the air, everyone should wear masks, right? Earlier, a few of my friends and I used to be ridiculed for wearing masks in the winter, right? You'd look like a
Yeah.
dacoit, or you'd look weird, or your face would not be seen, or that be at least COVID has taken that away. I
Yeah.
think one of the greatest things, again, even if you can't do anything, I think all the prime ministers and the chief ministers of this region should have a massive masks campaign during the winter. We should not say that there is no problem outside. I think both in summer and winter, we are seeing very bad air quality. In winter, you can visualize it even more clearly. Your sensors can definitely say how horrible they are. And actually, the numbers that you see are much lesser than the true numbers that a citizen faces. So the big air quality monitors are in different parts of the city or the districts in their states. They are kept at a very tall height. They are kept away from different kinds of elements. So the just as an example, the air pollution that is recorded, let's say at the RK Puram station in Delhi,
Okay.
is about 30, 40 meters in the air. When you come down to the street, it's 1.5 times that number. And when you actually are on a main road near that, it's actually 2.5 times the number, right? So the experience of the citizen or the person on the street is far worse. And if you're on a South Delhi road, it's probably 2.5 times. If you're on a Northeast Delhi road near a slum, it's probably 5 times as worse.
Right.
So what number you're getting as 800 or 900 is probably 4,000 or 3,000 for them by the time the citizen experiences it. So I think first things first, abate the air pollution. Don't, it's like if you had a car accident, you wouldn't say you should have led a better lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? And you should have not driven your car unsafely. You would operate them, you would fix them.
Take
I think
care of
first thing is everyone should wear a mask. Everyone should have an air purifier. If you can't afford your air purifier, you should be able to build your own with your own materials. The government should do it in every school. I think one easy win is every government school, every private school should have air purifiers. I don't sell air purifiers. I've intentionally not gotten into the business of air purifiers because people would say, Arey, he's creating the fear mongering, but also trying to give you a solution. So buy whichever one at your price point works, and try to get philanthropists. That is the clearest first thing that they can do. I think the second thing that you can do at the home scale, depending on your age, right? If you're a person who has a lot of money, you can fund some things. This for others, you can fund it for yourself. You can be more mindful. I think educating yourself is a thing that everyone can do, whether you're 5 or 50 or 100 years old. If you're a child in a school, you can definitely learn more about this, right? You can, there's a lot of now knowledge that exists in this space, informing yourselves, arming yourself to analyze data, right? Sometimes creating an app, creating a website, just showing what is my local neighborhood issues, right?
Okay.
And RWA could easily put sensors in their own region and say, why is it that near the market, usually, or near the bus stop, there's a lot more air pollution than in the neighborhoods itself, right? You'd be able to see that maybe it's because of the dust that is getting recirculated. Maybe it's because of the cars that are coming in and out of there. Maybe it's because of construction and debris that is happening in some nearby region, and that house is just put all the mitti and the concrete on the street. So that's one set of things that one can do. You can also, I think, in several parts of the city, there are enough. I think Delhi has about 1,700 unauthorized colonies. It has about, give or take, about 800 or 900 resident welfare associations. A lot of people can solve these problems for themselves, right? And a lot of pollution, like if you have 100 units of pollution in a given region, actually 25, 30 units comes literally from your neighborhood, right? It is everything from people smoking in the market, in the public, to garbage burning, because the garbage doesn't have a right place to go anywhere. to people burning leaves in the winter because they want to keep warm, to people sort of leaving their cars, like driving their cars for local neighborhood activities for
Just to go
convenience,
close by,
right?
yeah.
So you can avoid some of
Avoid
that
that.
convenience. You can wear a mask and go walk. The experience of air pollution will be the same. You have to put yourself through some stress, but you have to also stress your community a little bit. So be more vocal in your RWA, right? Go to your RWA and tell them this is not okay that construction is happening and people have not put the scaffolding again that is mandated by the state rules.
Okay.
A lot of builders, especially in posh colonies everywhere, don't follow any of the construction norms in the city. So like my mother always asks me, where is this dust coming from, right? This is a question a lot of people ask. You have no idea where the dust is coming from. The dust is coming from, there are many reasons for the dust, but the construction debris is one of the fundamental reasons why constantly, because of poor materials and poor construction process, right? Poor materials are probably used in the slums and the unauthorized colonies, but in Pakka colonies, you don't have that problem as well, right? The DLFs don't have that problem. So all the builders in Delhi should probably emulate the best practices of how to build. Make 2% lesser margins on your profit, right? Because your city will be better. And don't just isolate yourself in your own air purifier rooms or buy your house in Goa as the option of Delhi's air pollution not going away. So I think a lot of this is also a personal choice. We can always have more profit and we can outsource the problem to others, but know that you're doing that. So
I think it's
when
about making that conscious choice.
right.
Yeah.
So I think it's that. And the final thing that you can do is go annoy your elected representatives to do more on this issue, right? Politicians really respond to public feedback. They have to.
Okay.
I actually respect politicians and businesses a lot more than I do academics. And I've been an academic or I've been a activist in the past because they actually have to go to votes to get votes and get money from others. Like they can't vote themselves into power. A lot of professors can promote themselves in their own department. A lot of activists can keep meeting other activists and feel good about this. At least the locus of judgment stands outside for businesses and for governments. So one last thing you can do is annoy your local councillor, say why you're not doing anything for air pollution, right? A lot of people just think politicians are terrible. Have you even met your local corporator? Like, do you know the name of your local councillor in MCG or in the MCD? Very few people know their councillor's name or know where their MLA lives or know where their MP lives. Get all the anger that you have at your local RWA meeting, but go channel it at the right representative.
Right.
If you do that 5 or 10 times, even if to just get you off their back, they might end up doing something. Right. So, and I think actually a lot of politicians across party lines, and this is, I've met a lot of people across the BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, Rashtriya Lok Dal, INLD. They are very happy to do it, but they're like, there is no demand. The demand is for Aadhaar cards. The demand is for wider roads. The demand is for something else.
I think as
So-
citizens, we never think that if we ask for it, even somebody is going to listen.
Again,
so that
second-class moral science also says,
Yeah.
ask and you shall receive,
Ask, yeah.
right? So
That's true.
at least all the Christian convent schools would tell you that. So you should ask. Go ask your public representative. And finally, make better choices yourself, whether it's from the market, right? If you can go walk to the market and get your work, please don't order Blinkit, right? You can say that also creates employment, but it does reduce emissions. Maybe there's other ways in which those people can find employment. The Kirana store, the grocery store, the neighborhood chemist store were doing a pretty good job before we got really into the habit of getting everything to us on a Yulu bike or a local moped or a person doing all of that to work to us. So I think some amount of choices has to be conscientious, right? You can find ways of reusing some of your bags at home. So each and every choice, I think, which reduces your consumption, which reduces the amount of things you can do is useful, right? And I think what that will also give you, and I'm telling this to people even from a very selfish standpoint, it'll give you the moral authority to tell people what to do, right? Rarely have I met anyone, because I do a lot of choices in my life, people find it very hard to argue with me on air pollution, right? Because I have reduced air pollution as much as I could, right? These pants are 6 years old, right? So I'm not keeping up with the latest fashion, except for my shirt, which my mother insisted I should wear for a podcast, right? I think there are several things that one can do ourselves, which can just show to people that there's an alternate way of living, there's an alternate way of doing, there's an alternate way of consuming. And I think at an individual level, there's so many of these things. But I think when you do a lot of these things, you'll end up opening more doors for yourself, right? So
Right.
I found several people who've done this end up helping their local neighborhood school. So why should you wait for the Department of Education to get purifiers there? I think every colony in Delhi has enough smart, rich, well-connected people who can find some CSR to give
Something.
some 2,000 masks to their school, or find some way to get some 40 air purifiers to their school, right? An average school has 40 classrooms and a principal's room. It has about 1,000 students. I'm sure you can do 5,000 masks and 40 air purifiers within every neighborhood, right? So there is if you put your mind to it, there's a lot that can be done. And then comes to the higher order of planning, right? Then a higher order of helping things. You can help at the community scale, at the state scale. You can help young researchers. Like if you're a big business, right, you have some CSR, give it to good young district magistrates, give it to good young academics at IITs
Right
and so
place.
on, who are doing great research, but they never find funding because some senior professor has eaten that funding, and they don't have the time to explain why the system is screwed up, right? They don't have the time even to make it to a very good podcast like yours, right? So
Thank you.
I have the time to do that. So I think these are things that you can do. So if you live in North Delhi, do it at DU, right? If you're in Northwest Delhi, help Delhi College of Engineering. If you're in South Delhi, help IIT Delhi. Find young people, find young academics, help them, fund them, get some results, put some sensors out there. So I think you can do a lot of this, and I think this is true for all the schools. If you do things at the school, you'll have this problem solved automatically in 5 to 10 years. Like literally, my
Young people.
only space of confidence doesn't come from any of the older people, including myself. It comes from purely people who are between 15 to 25. I think they are all very, very conscientious. I don't think they've been told that they can be more powerful than they are. They'll have tremendous energy. And given the right idea, I think they can do a lot more. So I think if we can find ways to empower younger people in any space, that's the easiest win that you can get, whether it's your advice, whether it's your network, whether it's just forwarding one good YouTube video, right?
Any particular challenge, and mostly the challenge that I'm looking for, internal conflict that do you ever have while on this path? I'm sure there must be many external challenges by when you were talking to government or making policies and all the things that you're doing or with farmers. But any internal challenge or conflict have you ever faced in this journey of building Saroja and creating this change?
Sure. So I think, yeah, the challenges are many always. One shouldn't say that life has been a bed of roses as much as I made it out to be. So I think I'm much more privileged than most others. I have a gender privilege, so that allows me to do more things. I have a genetic privilege. I have a environmental or many other academic privileges. But I think the path that I've taken has exposed me to a lot of things which have been a little bit soul crushing at times, have been corrupting. So I think a lot of people necessarily, sometimes I feel like there is some malice in different places. So there is an old Hanlon's razor that says stupidity is often a better explanation of bad things than malice, right? So just
Okay.
because someone doesn't know or doesn't know how to coordinate, so you can explain things away, but sometimes malice does exist.
Right.
So there are sometimes people or institutions who are intentionally making things worse. I think countering that always has been a little bit difficult, even if it is friends of mine. And I have several friends who are also part of the problem. So whether it's in the government or whether it's in academia, I have found that several of my friends or old colleagues or new colleagues or potential friends are part of the problem. So I think being able to inspire them is not always very easy, right? You can't. While I said it's good to align private good and public good, that's not necessarily always the case that it
Yes,
is
yes.
possible, right? So and at some scales, especially when you're public representatives, you have to make choices for the greater good than just for yourself. I don't think that's necessarily always been true across any function, whether it's in the government, whether it's in the private sector, right? Even in the private sector, and we know all the problems with government and politicians, that's been said enough. But even in the private sector, people will sometimes steal your idea and do it worse. I'm saying steal my idea if you can do it better, right?
Okay.
But if you're going to do it worse, it sometimes kills the idea itself.
Right.
Similarly, in research papers, like if your certain idea is there and someone else copies that research paper, but doesn't prove it well enough in the same way that you could have maybe if you took 2 to 3 years, that discredited idea becomes mainstream and people discredit very quickly. So when the second time someone who goes and says something in the same vein, it becomes like the boy who cried wolf,
Got it.
right? So
Yeah.
I think there have been challenges.
So, what keeps your passion alive when you face such
Yeah,
challenges?
and there's also, I should also mention, there have been many personal challenges as well.
Right.
You may tell a story about who you are to yourself, and you may find peace in some places. But believe me, when like I've gotten caught several times in the rains and random villages in some place, or I've been caught without some the appropriate like clothing or the sleeping aids or just the life that I'm used to, like by being in a city or by having lived in New York and San Francisco or so on. I really used to curse it. I'm like, why am I doing this? These idiots
Right.
don't understand me. I hate like
Yeah.
people. So, but I think waking up, if you have some true purpose, there's a good, again, one last quote that I'll share from Nietzsche, who says that they who have a why can bear almost any how. Right. So while that's temporary, that annoyance, so I do travel with a sleeping bag sometimes now. Whenever I visit villages, I ensure I buy mineral water because my stomach just doesn't work for some things. But I think there are some things that are just like logistical issues. I think you manage logistical issues far better than internal issues. With the meaning question, I don't think I've ever had a problem. I'm been blessed both by my grandmother and parents and all my friends that I've always had a reasonable sense of purpose.
Right.
But it does lead to some angst at times that I don't have a private life. I'm not married yet. Both my parents ensure that they remind me every 2 months when I meet them. So I'd love to have a personal life as well. So sometimes that's a bit disappointing that certain people may not understand the life that I lead, or at least for now, for a few more years, where a lot of travel is involved.
Right.
So it does. So you try to make it up with some friends or finding other people whom you might align with. And I think finally, in terms of the work, there's a great variance, right? Because from an IIT professor who's trying to publish a paper to a farmer who's just trying to get the parali of their field, we work with a host of different stakeholders. I think one hard thing, which now I find easier, is to understand why are they in this or what's in it for them in this conversation. I
Right.
think till I was about 31 or 32, even when I met a chief minister or a bureaucrat who was the head of a department, I necessarily didn't understand what are they looking for, right? Sometimes they wanted to buy an apple and I was selling them an orange and a banana, right? I think that is a lot of hit and trial, and that used to cause a lot of angst. I'd be like, I'm
Okay.
selling fruits too. Why are you not buying my fruit?
Right.
So I think now that I have a good understanding of every client, having rinse repeat, seeing which fruit is eaten by whom, right? Some people like apples, some people like lychees, some people want the dragon fruit, some people want exotic fruits from abroad, right? I now ensure I have some fruit of each kind and I'm selling the right fruit to the
Right
right
fruit.
person. I think that for many years used to cause a lot of angst. And I think the last thing to be said in that space is a lot of the strife that sometimes exists in your body, I used to take it, internalize it as well.
Okay.
So it used to reflect on my skin, on my body. So I've gone from a weight category of being 65 kilos to about 105 kilos in different
Okay.
parts of time over the last 10 years. I have myself indulged in a lot of vices in society as well. My mother will hate me for talking about this, but I mean everything from smoking to drinking to any vice that you can think about. Because depression would find me in some way, but I think purpose always found me back away from them. So I'm now happily away from all vices in the world. So the first pollution to actually cure is within your own heart and mind and your body. So as you do more and more of that in some way or the other, you keep finding ways in which you can solve it for others as well. So now that I
Wow.
think I'm reasonably clean and pure, at least from my habits and my life perspective, and purpose has
Wow.
always been there, which has been always helpful to ensure I don't stray or
Beautiful.
we can help other people solve their air pollution problem as well.
I love what you said just now, Roshan, that the first pollution is to clear inside our heart and bodies.
Yeah, it's the Swadesh line, man se Ravan jo nikale, Ram uske man mein hai. So whoever cleans the bad from
Yes.
himself, the good is in them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Roshan, for all this amazing information and really enlightening us with the new awareness about this particular topic of air quality. And one thing definitely I'm taking is, which I've thought of but not practiced yet, is taking more metro wherever I can, then using my car. And I would love to ask my listeners, what one thing that you would like to shift in your life, because change begins with us. I totally believe that. I would love to hear from you any comments that you have about this particular topic, and from this conversation, what is coming to your heart and mind when we talk about pollution outside and inside as well. Thank you so much for listening to Quantum Shift. Till then, stay connected with your higher self and keep leading with higher consciousness. Thank you.